Good morning, everyone. This is Kathy Mason from MasonWorks Marketing here on Conscious Business Zone. Today with my new friend, Jules Schroeder. Hi, Jules. How are you?
Hey, Kathy. Hey, everyone. Happy Friday.
Yes. Well, I am so excited to meet you. I know that I got to look at your bio and wowee, I'm so glad to know you altogether. Whoops, my phone's ringing. um, so you are ranked by Inc. magazine as #1 of the top 27 female entrepreneurs changing the world and one of the top 40 millennials to follow. So, wow, that's got to be like, how do you maintain that? Like,
Yeah.
but tell us, because you're a wonderful musician, you play the ukulele, which I used to play the baritone when I was in high school. So how did all this happen, Jules? I mean, this is so cool.
Yeah. So, my dad worked Wall Street in New York City, and I know we were chatting a little bit before we got on today, and I'm the oldest of five. And, I very much grew up with this mentality from him is the Wall Street mentality, go to school, get a good job, get a better job, and then kind of go into one of these different career paths. And I always, for most of my life, just felt different. I had so many interests. I loved music, I loved art, I loved all these different things that I was like, how do I take all these components of my self expression and fit them into this box? And I just couldn't. And so over time, I ended up just kind of iterating. I started my first 6-figure business at 18, 7-figure business at 22. By the time I was 24, I had a business partner embezzle a bunch of money and went into debt, lost it all, made it all. And then about 6 years ago, I had a near-death experience. And this was really the catalyst for Unconventional Life and the work that I've done and the music that I've done since then. And I was out in Colorado, just as at Stanley Lake one day, wakeboarding. And I was out with the guys, and I used to be a big snowboarder, a big athlete. And so it was like, who can get the most air and jump the wake? And I got a lot of air. I came down and I face planted and smacked really hard. And I knew in that moment something was wrong, but I did a quick check. I was like, my limbs are attached. I think I'm okay. And an hour later, I got off the boat and I was in the bathroom stall, and I put my hand on that big toilet paper roll, and my whole body started to go numb and tingly, and I lost all feeling in my body. And my friend took me to the hospital, and the next memory I had was coming out of the MRI and this white figure approaching me, the Six Black Shadow Council member. And we had this conversation that was, Jules, you have more work to do in the world. Do you want to do it? And at the time, they thought I might have been paralyzed. They thought, my neck might have been broken. I just remember saying yes, as long as I don't come back as a vegetable. And in this next moment, I was zapped back into my body. I felt this energy forge my neck back together and shoot down my spine. And the moment that I woke up that day, it was like everything shifted. It was like life before me being driven by me, life since that moment really coming through. And that was the catalyst for so much. And 3 weeks later, I was in the, still in my neck brace, and I get a call from this woman who I'd met years prior. And she's like, do you want to be a global ambassador for education at the United Nations? And I was like, I'm kind of still like in a neck brace. Like, this isn't really the best time. I just like had this experience. And his voice was just like, tell her you've got this initiative called Create You to reimagine higher education. And I'm like, what? And I told her that, and 3 weeks later, she had me come to the UN. I then get invited to Forbes 30 Under 30. They asked me to start writing for them. I start this podcast called Unconventional Life, and the dominoes just really rippled from there.
Wow. So I have so many connections for you. I didn't realize all this about you. First of all, I'm a volunteer for IONS, which is the International Association for Near-Death Studies. And
Wow.
it's been in existence over 40 years. There's research that's unbelievable about near-death that you could probably get connected with all of them. And there is a lot of wonderful opportunities to expand your presence internationally with that. And then the other thing is I work with this gentleman named Bill Spady, Dr. William Spady, who does object-based education. And it's a different kind of education system that is based on competency, not on scores. And I'll introduce you to, he's written like 9 books.
Wow.
And he implemented his whole system in the Philippines, and he's been speaking in Saudi Arabia.
Wow.
because the US isn't that open.
Yeah.
So are you still involved with the UN doing education and?
Yeah, so I was for a little bit when I was doing this project called Create You, which really just started the genesis for my company that I run now called Unconventional Life. And the whole mission behind it was really just to tell stories, to give people permission, per my mission, as my friend likes to say, to follow non-traditional paths. And it, kind of echoed a lot of what I had growing up, which there weren't many examples. I started entrepreneurship in 2011. And so back then, it's not like you just put on social media and there's a million podcasts or live streams like this that are so inspiring. And so I really wanted to start that conversation. And that then turned into hosting these live masterminding events for entrepreneurs all over the world. We've taken over castle towns in Italy or safaris in South Africa, tree houses in Nicaragua. So we've been all over and, been ranked top event for entrepreneurs and things like that. So the company's evolved. It's looked a little different with COVID. I remember last year we were going to bring 500 entrepreneurs on a cruise ship through Italy, which almost sounded like a Saturday Night Live skit as COVID was approaching. It was like, cruise ships, avoid Italy. And we were like, the event was going to gross 2 million. We had 300 sold. We were like, oh my goodness. And then life pivots, and it pivots. And that's just what we do. We adapt. And, the irony behind it too is really to create a co-evolution. I think, at least for myself and for many of us, it's not so interesting to be the big fish of your pond or this lone wolf in your own siloed domain. And I think a lot of us, especially with COVID, is how do we step outside of where we've been and the domains that we've known to really come together and create something new? What does transformation look like at scale? What does connection look like at scale? What does community look like at scale? And so the mission of that event was in this co-evolution. And I think, it came in a different form, but I think that soul, that mission is alive more than ever now, and where we are. So
did you feel like you gained superpowers after your near death, and that's what allowed you to really blossom afterwards? Is that, because I see that a lot.
Yeah, it actually was so interesting. So being in that space, it was the most, and I'll relate to it as love, just that frequency there that it made coming back into a body and skin and bones kind of is a big separation. Because it was once I touched that, it was I want to go home. I don't want to be on this. Why am I here? If that's on the table on the secret menu, what is this about? And for a while, I had to really learn how to integrate my supercharged spirit. It felt like I was at a 10-volt battery, got supercharged to a 100-volt battery. What makes being alive here worthwhile? And I started to really look at the integration of soul and human, which ultimately I think for so many of us is how do we integrate our gifts and talents in both places? And so, but I mean, full medical intuitive gifts came online, all kinds of just, abilities to read energy, to do all these different things. And it's been a wild ride. And I think back to those words often, you have more work to do. Do you want to? In some moments, I'm like, why did I say yes? Why did I say yes? It's too much. I wanted to hit the eject button in COVID so many times. And then in other moments, I'm like, I'm right on track, and I think that's the nature of the human experience sometimes. So.
I do too. And I do think that those of us, because I'm psychic and intuitive too. I think those of us that have the extra knowledge of awareness of the unseen, that when we saw COVID happen, it almost felt like game on. It almost felt like, okay, this was the transition I came here for. This was part of the assignment. Now, what do I do with it? And so then it's like, are you courageous enough to show up? Because it's all about not caring about how it looks and being willing to make the mistakes as you're learning, because you have to.
Yeah.
But using that, I find that there's so many decisions to be made, and I'm just testing. I mean, it's okay. It's I surrender. I don't know. I'm just this woman. So you guys share me. Do you find that too?
Absolutely. And I think, like you said, many of us, we've been on the front lines, for a while. This accident was in 2015, just iterating and iterating. And now it was okay, go time. Really, let's stop, imagining it from the background, real front lines. And I think that's the beauty and also the challenge of we're in. It is completely new territory, and new territory newly being met every single moment. And that's a continuous practice. Yeah.
I got chills, because I think that's where we want to co-create with the universe at a really high level. And we've been dumbed down. We've been like sleepwalking in a lot of ways. And so the thing is that all the political strife, all of this confusion gave us a period of time to really regroup and really decide what your values are, decide what you really like and what you don't like, and how best to serve. Because I do think that's what you're talking about too, that you found that I'm here to serve, and that I'm not here just to consume. I'm here to serve. It's different.
It is. And I think that we are in a giant activation right now, and that feels different for each one of us. And it's not always a pleasurable process.
Yeah.
It can be both at the same time even. And I think that that wide scale activation of our gifts and talents, tremendous opportunity. And at the same time, being able to recognize what's happening. I know after I had my accident, that was the hardest part. I was like, I don't even know what to Google for this awakening that I'm having. Like what do I even, how do I even describe? And what it ultimately came down to was my nervous system was being tuned up, and to the degree that I had physical space. And that's the other thing, at least for me to remember and for us to remember, is that as we awaken, we do have to clear more space in our physical body to hold that which we are awakening. Otherwise, it becomes very challenging to integrate. And so, we could go on about all the things. So,
well, see, I think that a lot of times, I mean, this is conscious business zone, and a lot of the people that follow this thread are really amazing people, because they've got businesses and they're consciously trying to make the world a better place with their business, like what you've started. And they're conscious with their clients as well as conscious with their employees or contractors. And that's a different model of business altogether, which is very similar to what you're talking about. You can't have all of those obstacles and all that old trauma blocks and do that. You can't. You have to keep clearing it. You have to have space to hold as much light as you can and transmute it, because you're transmuting for yourself and everyone else, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I don't know if you know the author, Matt Kahn. Are you familiar with his work?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I read his book, Whatever Arises, Love That, during that time period. And him and I actually, it changed everything for me. And if anyone hearing this is kind of in their own version of awakening, it just gave me language for what I was experiencing. And him and I later on met an event, we became friends and things like that. But he's just, incredible. And I think he shares a lot, to this conversation too. So.
Yes. I think there's a bunch of people like Matt, and Matt, I was surprised how short he was, because I'm short and
I know, we did an in-person interview and we sat on the couch and I was like, oh.
well, and there's a lot packed into that little package. It just doesn't, it means that this physical body doesn't matter. But you can really see that people are, I know Denise is on here right now, and Denise is in England, and she does light language and all sorts of beautiful, she can sing, and then she does these hand movements, and she does art. And so there's all these people bringing in this frequency of beauty and light and love in all different ways. And you've chosen to do music. Can you talk a little bit about your beautiful music that you've created?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I was, starting all these different companies for a long time, and music, in my opinion, is the shortcut to the soul. I feel like we bypass the logical brain and we go right to the heart. We go right to feeling. And so as I was doing all these different events, I would occasionally bring out the guitar. I'd have this. And my dad, I grew up, he's a Wall Street guy. So he's like, unless you're going to be like totally secure in one of the top 1% of music, then like pursue something stable, go into business. So I got really good at business. And then, I kept waking up every night with more money, feeling completely unfulfilled. And it was like, there has to be more. And so I went all in to my artist. It took me 9 years to make my first music album. I'm actually in the process of releasing my third now, which has been so awesome. So just to even feel like the congruency of what I know matching the external, I think that's the thing a lot of us feel sometimes. We have these internal knowings and our external reality is not matching what we're feeling yet. And so for me, the last 4 or 5 years has just been that practice of creating that congruency. And the music that I create is all channeled. So I will literally sit at the piano, my hands will be guided to play, or the ukulele, same thing to strum. I'll put on the voice recorder and an entire song will download through. And then I'll go back, I'll transcribe it, and those are the lyrics, and that's the song. And one of the singles I released called Judgment Day this last November, which is part of the album I'm releasing called Restless Soul, which will be out this fall.
Okay.
And it was really about this era that we're in and asking yourself the questions, was it all worth it? And this anthem, this chorus is like, you got to tell them, you got to show them, you got to live free or die. And it's really this call for those of us that are out here on the front lines, creating conscious business in conscious community, to really choose and to reflect and to look, what are you actually prioritizing? And I think that's also been a gift of COVID. What are the things that I say yes to? Even looking, I did this recently, looking at everything that you do in your life, ranking it on a 1 to 10 scale, from the trash to cleaning to clients to phone calls to kids or whatever it might be. And when I looked at that, I gave it a 1 to 10, 10 being a total yes, so 1 being a no. I found a lot of my time was really, the average was in the 6 and 7s, where most of the things that I loved, my 10s, the music and things like that, were just occupying a small chunk. And so, sometimes I think we just create things and you have to pop yourself out to be like, is this the actual conscious life I'm creating? Or is this a default life that I'm inheriting? And, even the best of us, right? We just autopilot sometimes. It's a continual practice. And so my music very much speaks to a lot of that. And I was telling you earlier, we have a big show that we're playing tonight. And 2 days ago, I wrote my first Spanish song, which was awesome, like channeled Spanish song called like Ojalá que, which is like, I hope you. And it's like about singing and dancing, but really coming to this thing of being this like freedom-based, possibility-based lifestyle. And so anyways, I'm going to perform my first Spanish song tonight. So that'll be a whole, so stay tuned. I guess maybe I'll be going into Espanol con todas mis canciones. My grandmother was Puerto Rican, but Spanish was a part of me that has been lost for many years living in the States. And so anyways, it's a beautiful thing to witness, but a lot of blues, roots, soul music that comes through. So.
Well, I love that you said that music is one of the fastest routes to your soul. And I do think music and art are that way because they bypass your thinking mind. And that's where this whole period that we're going through right now, where people get to choose and make conscious choices, they get to feel in their heart. Are you finding that you're getting great responses from people understanding that, or are you feeling that you're still like a lone wolf a little bit?
I think it's shifting. And I think that, people with so much noise that's being thrown at them or thrown at us, is we pay attention to the things that we remember, and we remember through our experience. We remember through our feeling more, in my opinion. How did something make me feel? Even for those of you watching this, you might not remember all the things that I say or even the things that Kathy says, but there's a way that I imagine you feel in tuning into her show, in being a part of here. And I think that those imprints are what I strive for. And I think music and art and creativity does that. But even in business, I think the way that we stand out is we create memorable imprints of feeling more than we do just in the logic. And if you do that, then I think it paves the space for, the rest to come through. But I really think that feeling first, which is ultimately connection, in my opinion, does anchor in the longevity.
Right. Well, I did an interview a couple of days ago with somebody. I'm not usually on shows. I'm usually on the side of the thing. Anyway, I talked about relationship because I really think everything is relationship with yourself at first, and getting clear on that, and then showing up authentically in relationship with others. And that's conscious business. I mean, that's conscious everything. And but I find that there's like 2 tracks. The reason why I asked about what you're seeing with your friends and your community is it seems like there's still people following the status quo, the program. And then there's these other people like you and me that have broken out and like, what mud pie can I make today? It's more like, how can it work through me today to co-create with the universe, and not really caring that it's messy or that it's not perfect. And that's where I think this whole time period has actually allowed a lot of us to find each other through the internet. I mean, it's been a great opportunity for spirit-minded people to connect without the isolation that they've been, because a lot of people have hidden their gifts.
Yeah.
try to adapt.
Completely. And there wasn't really much of a system to support it, And I think and I think that's been one of the biggest gifts of COVID is I think it was such an accelerator
Yes.
for us finding each other and in some ways offering a choice. And it's like, before I felt like it was more of a luxury, like, oh, you could dabble in like this other world of like, more of the status quo. And then I dabble over here. And at least in my own experience, I feel like people are really being asked to choose. Like in terms of the resourcing, it's like, all right, are you going to choose this conversation? Or are you going to choose that conversation? And it's not that there's a right or a wrong, but it's more of an energy, consumption and more of a conservation. And so I see more people that historically have been more on the fence or in that world just being like, you know what? I'm jumping off the cliff. Like I'm going there. I don't even know what it looks like, but I'm going to play there because over here is no longer interesting. So at least I'd rather be in this conversation in the unknown, even if I'm terrified, even if I'm excited, even if I have no idea what I'm doing, just because at least I know over here isn't going to give me what I want in here.
Right. Well, and that they're clear what they want. They're more clear. See, that takes the time, like you made that process to go through and categorize what makes your heart sing. And this time is giving people more time off their phones, off their computer, and they had to deal with their own mortality. You've had the near-death experience. I've had spiritually transformative experience, which is kind of like a near-death, but not. My body wasn't mangled. That's a big trauma. And and so what you had was much harder to deal with than what I had. But at a certain point, you sort of come out of it and go, okay, now I see I'm so much more than what's in this little physical body. What am I going to do about it? And how am I going to connect to that and bring it in? Because obviously we stood in line to get these bodies to be here right now during this time of change to bring in more light, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so cool. So why don't we, if you wouldn't mind, would you start talking about a little bit about our your event that's coming up so that we get some idea of all the cool stuff? I don't have, again, it's going to say the Dare to Prosper Challenge .com.
Yeah. So I am co-hosting this event with a dear friend of mine, Jolie Dawn, and it's a free challenge that's going to start on the 27th of May, running through the 28th. And the mission and the vision behind it is to ignite a collective wealth uprising for all women. And doesn't mean, men, that you are excluded from participating in this challenge. It just means that it's a woman-centered conversation. And the idea behind it is how do we, look at just this conversation around prosperity? I think for some people, especially during this time, COVID was either a time where you lost a lot and, it was a big like income decline, or for some of you, I know some people really double X, 2X, 3X their business. And maybe for some of you, you're in between. Some of you lost it and then you grew it, and, wherever you're at in the conversation. Our vision behind this was just to look at how do we start having a global conversation. And if I do believe that the feminine way is going to usher us into this next way, and also looking as women, a time where we've historically been told there's been caps on what we can make. We should stay in these boxes. How do we just break those paradigms and then just create a vortex? And that's ultimately what this is for 10 days. It is a vortex. It's a field for 10 days over your life where the only mission is to create and be aware of as much prosperity in your life as possible. And how that will look is we've got guest teachers and experts. Every morning we'll have different prosperity activations. And these activations are like meditations. They're 30 minutes. You literally, and if you can't make it live, you can watch the recording. If you just sign up at that link, daretoprosperchallenge.com, you'll get it all. It's all free. And it's a way every day of going into the quantum field, some of what we've been talking about. How do you look in the subconscious of where are my inherited beliefs? Where are my subconscious beliefs, and what are my upper limits of what I say is possible? And prosperity just doesn't have to always mean wealth in terms of financial sense. I mean, I'm talking like wealth in your relationships, wealth in your health, wealth in terms of career, wealth in terms of all of it. Like, how do you have the and reality of what success is for you? And so by having that consistent practice, I actually did this challenge last year, and I've been going through a pretty rough time, and it was middle of COVID. I was at my house in Netherlands, surrounded by national forests, living with with two friends. That event that I told you I was going to gross 2 million overnight, down the drain. I was like hemorrhaging money, and it was just like, oh my gosh. And then mentally, there's some deep moments of like, what is the point? Like feeling just profoundly complete. Like, I think I've done enough. I've done enough podcasts. I've done enough events. Like I've done enough things. And my roommate was like, hey, I hear about this challenge, which my friend Jolie Don had created about 3 years ago. She was like, why don't you just participate? And at that moment, I was like, I don't even care about prosperity. I don't want to be in the conversation of prosperity. And I was like, I was a no to just all of it at that moment. And I did the challenge, and these meditations really pivoted and shifted my life at that time. And I made over $60,000 that next month just as a result of the activations. And the money was just a bonus, and it was obviously great. But what happened is the relationship to myself and me being a relationship to how I create in the world, how I get to ask for what I want and see the results real time. Not like send it out there and eventually it comes back. It's a real time practice of asking, being aware of what showed up, asking, being aware of what showed up for 10 days. And, I invited her to Mexico after, and I was like, Jolie, let me thank you. Like, really, we've known each other for 10 years. And this time around, she asked me to co-host it with her. And so we are so excited. We will have about 5,000 people joining us at this challenge. So if you're feeling called to it, or just feel like you've been needing a little something and you're not sure what that's been, just come. And if you're rocking it, come and create more. And if you're not rocking it and you're like where I was last year, just come, be as you are. And I promise a lot of greatness,
Well,
will show up in the realm of prosperity.
the idea is that everything's contagious. I mean, that
Yeah.
everything's there back and forth. And this is such a beautiful time for everyone to get back into control of what they
Yeah.
really want, and to really spend some time planning. I do I do live by planning.
Mhm.
People go, oh, I just want spirit to lead me, and it's like, I don't know, because I don't know if you'll ever get to where you want to be.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I really noticed that you were saying was gratitude. I really
Yeah.
that's the other recipe for success right now. So
Mhm.
it's not just law of attraction and call it all in. It's hey, what are you really grateful for now that you want to amplify,
Yeah.
right?
And anchoring that gratitude, both as a practice, as a frequency. And I think that's the other thing, is that sometimes, at least for myself, it's easy to forget. You set this goal or this objective, and then you have it, and then you set another one by the time you've gotten there. And so just the practice of anchoring in the receiving of that, what you're asking for consistently, in my opinion, tells God, universe, whatever you relate to it, I'm ready for more. Thank you. And I'm ready for more. Thank you. And I'm ready for more. And so it's definitely a huge part.
Okay, so I'm going to ask again about the courage to do that, because when you say, okay, I'm ready for more, it's like, um, how do you trust? How do you trust that? How do you trust well, I know you trust your connection with the divine or
Yeah.
universe source, but how do you trust that you can handle more? Do you
Yeah.
know
For
what I mean?
me,
People feel it right now. They're like,
totally.
oh, I don't know if I can handle one more thing. And they're watching the news, and it's like, I don't even know what's going on. I'm trying to stay clear this way. But
Mhm.
but do you know what I'm saying? That it's
I
like,
do. Yeah, and for me, I relate to more almost, and how just kind of at the nature of sensation. And so one of the things, especially during that last period, where I was like feeling this profound completeness, what started to open up was, how can I just be present to my present moment vibrancy? So if my more was just about increasing while I'm outside, can I take a bigger breath and see if I can smell more fresh air? Can I feel more sun on my skin, rather than the to-do list of, this is what's wrong with this, or I got to handle this client that, or this kid that, or whatever it might be? Can I just be present and increase my present moment vibrancy? And I think more can look so different for so many of us. And I think the level of just sensation, which also comes back to gratitude, right? Can I just even stay? Can I just be willing to be in the conversation? Sometimes that's the most more that we can have. Can I just even stay? Can I just show up? Can I just arrive? Can I just allow myself to be there? That might be more. And for other of us, we might be like in the active, like I'm getting after it and more. Yes, please, more. And wherever you are, I think that being in that present moment sensation, it's like we were talking about earlier, it's how you stay in relationship with spirit. It's how you stay in consistent dialogue. You are in the practice of listening, and you have to meet that, in my opinion, every moment newly. Because if you don't, we miss the point, right? And it's a continual evolution. And I think, if anything, it's not mastering the doing, but it's mastering the being. And if you can become great at being a translator for spirit moving in your own life, even if sometimes the cue you're getting is still and you're stuck and you're stagnant and you're like, come on, like get me somewhere else, but sometimes it takes that practice and that patience and that humility. So I think that dialogue is really part of the focus. And that's why I'm so excited about this challenge, is that, for me and for some of us, just to have the opportunity to give ourselves that gift for 10 days in our life, just to listen and be in devotion to self in that way. Sometimes that's just the more in the gift too.
The other thing that I think that you represent to me, which I hope you take as a compliment, is self-love. That you've decided to love yourself enough to give yourself the connection with spirit, and to show up fully, and to dare to prosper. I mean, because I do think that's the other big part of this time period, is people getting back connected and loving themselves, because it has to start here. The inner work has to start here. And if you can give yourself 10 days to do a challenge and dare yourself to have the life you really meant to have, that's self-love, right?
Absolutely. It is. And, you might dare yourself and make it 2 days, or you might make it the whole 10, but just being willing to entertain the conversation, I think, is so important. And, I had a dear friend of mine, unfortunately, he passed away in February. He committed suicide, and he was 5 years younger than me. And we started as music partners. And, we had this whole Jules and Chris thing. This was before Unconventional Life, before my near-death experience. And he was an aerospace engineer out to shift the conversation between artistry and entrepreneurship. And so much of when he passed away this year in February, it hit me, and I felt like God took these like electric shock paddles they give you when you're dying to my chest. It was like, boom. And I had been in so many ways in this slumber, and without realizing it, the amount of what I'll call just fear consciousness that I had been subscribing to, even with all the tools and the best practices. At the end of the day, we're all human. I was in my own humanity. And it took almost that experience for me to ask myself, if I keep going down this path, if I keep being at the effect of the news, at the effect of COVID, at the effect I can't do the live events, at the effect of all of this stuff, the vaccines, the fear, the this, and I'm not judging any of it, but that was just at the effect of it, then like my life, like it will not be a life that I actually want to live. And I think I got so fed up that if this is life, I'm not interested. I want to opt out. I'm done. That I had to choose to run the other direction, to choose the other direction, because that option, like it was so in front of my face, was not going to be one that I wanted to stay for. I didn't sign up. I didn't tell God I was going to be a yes to this shit. Excuse my language, sorry. To this stuff, if this is what it was going to entail. And so, for me, it really was asking that. And I think a lot of us are in that choice. And I think the practice of self-love is a gift. And in some ways, for me, in that moment, it was like a duty. It was like if I'm going to do this, then I gotta do this differently. And I think that wherever you are in that spectrum, for me in that moment a few months ago, really is what has sent me running in this direction. And this challenge has been a byproduct of that.
Fantastic. Well, I'm sorry for your loss, but you know that he's still around anyway. And I mean, after having a near-death experience, it's just like flipping a page. It's not that they're really gone. It's just you can't touch them. But they're still here. They're still here. So the Dare to Prosper Challenge
starts May 17th to 28th. So everyone, you can head over to the daretoprosperchallenge.com right now. Just enter in your name and email. It's totally free to register. And then we've got a Facebook group that you'll be opted in to join. We've got a prosperity meditation that you can do just to start to prep And, the challenge, it's really a combination of meditation. And then we have some scavenger hunt kind of things where you just start to become more aware of what's already happening, in your life. And we've got different experts that will speak in the domain of business from a lot of different areas, from whether it's also from, business in terms of like a tantric place, whether it's business in terms of a structure and system place. I mean, it's really across the board of the experts. And so it'll be 10 days completing on the 28th. And we'll be taking registrations through the first week. So you can get into it. If you love it, you want to invite your friends. And we're also doing a prosperous Mexico giveaway too, where if you join us in the challenge and you invite a few friends as accountability, we really believe that if you have accountability in your life to support you, then you'll be eligible to come win a free trip to Mexico for two at a luxury resort in Playa del Carmen. And so that's just our gift of our deposit into the prosperity field, is saying, hey, if you're interested, if you want to go to Mexico, like just come and invite a few friends to do this with you, so that it really can live alive in your life and in your relationships in your life. So
wow, this sounds great, and it sounds like there's fun to it. I mean, this is the old school of like, gotta do it. I want to do it, and
yeah.
I want to play, because this is the time, honestly, to play with everything and experiment and to see what makes your heart sing, and really live from here, not here anymore. That never worked. It seems like that's been the connecting the two of them is great, but here is where that that you're going to make a big difference. You're going to touch other people. So, Jules, I want to also put your link up for your beautiful music so people can find you. It's julesschroedermusic.com, and it's on the screen. I'll put it also in the comments so that people can find you to see your new album and your other. It's just beautiful. The amount of beauty and mystery and I don't even know. It's exotic. The videos, it's absolutely beautiful, you guys. And you can see she's a bright light that's going to really help as many people wake up to their divinity as possible. That's what I'm so proud to meet you. And since I know we live in the same city, I'm gonna hope to meet you in person.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Kathy, thank you so much. And I love you just being a stand for this conversation. I know what it takes. I my own podcast, Unconventional Life. We're almost at 300 episodes right now. And just the practice of sharing the stories and showing up is beautiful and fun, and it takes something. And so I just so acknowledge you and appreciate you being a stand for it. So
thank you. This is like my 260th.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I love it because I really see that the more that we can show people, not everybody's going to relate to every single person I interview, but everybody's a resource for them to see. Maybe one person's story is going to give them the courage, because I do think it's breaking out of that old mold into this really expanded view of humanity that we're experiencing right now. And it's a prosperous, abundant life. And abundance isn't just money. Abundance is health and well-being and pure love and expression. And that's what I think we're here to do, is co-create with the universe at that level, not at the I will stay within the lines level, which I guess I'm a rebel.
Completely. And I think just the practice of celebration is such the amplifier. I think that, I used to, at least in that model, it's like, oh, don't over talk about your success, or, be competitive. And I think we're just in the spirit now where it's like, for me, when one woman wins, we all win. When one man wins, we all win. And that we actually just get to be explicit about that gets to amplify even more what we do. So,
well, and because you're doing music, I would say also it's frequency, because the resonance wavelength that your energy provides and your essence provides, it's we're like tuning forks, and the more we get all together and resonate at that higher level, it's 100th monkey at this point. Well, can see it. You can see people breaking out of their shells and showing their gifts, their superpowers. And they don't have to have a near-death experience. I'm sorry to say you did, but they don't. Not everybody has to have that in order to get their true essence exposed and out. And that's what's so exciting about your event, your music, everything. Thank you so much, Jules, for everything you offer and who you are and the gifts you bring to the world. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Kathy. It's so great to be in connection. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I imagine if you're listening to this show, you get it. And if
Yeah.
you don't get it, you're getting it. And we remember and we forget, and we remember and we forget. And we show up anyways.
Okay. Well, one more time, we want to tell everyone, go to Dare to Prosper Challenge.com, and I'll
Yes.
have all the links available so that you can find Jules and get in on the fun, because this will be a transformational, um, not painful, transformational process that will get you to the next level. And even if you only get a little part of the way, it's something. Just
Yeah.
love yourself enough to experience the divine at the next level, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And let curiosity be your guide. If there's even an inkling of curiosity, head over the Dare to Prosper Challenge.com. It will be a lot of fun, will be a lot of play, and just see what's on the other side, and you might be surprised.
Great, great. Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to sign off now. Thank you so much, Jules. Just so everyone knows, there will be an event that we're doing, part of Spirituality Gone Wild, coming up in a week or so. I don't want to add too much to this show, but I'll put it in the link as well, that you can also join. That's also a free event. So I think the spirit of abundance is everywhere. People are sharing their gifts, and this is just a great time to be alive and to get out there and co-create with the universe. And thank you so much, Jules. Thank you for everything you do.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm going to sign up after this. So here. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Please share if you found this useful. Thank you. Bye-bye.